Where did you go to school?
I just finished grad school at USC.
Oh, the Trojans!
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you drinking?
Can't you just think of something better to say?
Hey, where are you coming from?
I just got done with yoga class.
Oh, what's the name of the yoga studio?
The yoga center?
How long have you been doing yoga?
A couple of years now.
How many days a week do you do yoga?
I think 2 to 3 times a week.
What time was your class? That's not how you do it.
How do you do it?
The social dirty bomb. One of the biggest problems people have in social interactions is they run out of things to say. Maybe they're done with a thought and they can't think of anything else to bring up that might be pertinent. Maybe the other person doesn't chime in. And in that lull, all those nice feelings of rapport and comfort and maybe even closeness that you've been able to establish with the other person dissipates. One of the theories that I heard that makes a lot of sense to me is you only run out of things to say when you feel like the other person is of higher social value than you, or you put too much importance in the interaction. For instance, think of yourself if you're in a room alone with a kid. You're not going to run out of things to say. And if you have nothing to say, that lull, that silence, you're not going to be upset or nervous or awkward about it. They're going to feel it, so it's not going to become awkward to them. The problem is when you're in interaction that you do care about the outcome, it's almost impossible to mask that awkwardness that you feel when that pause occurs. Therefore, it translates to them and they just kind of want to get out of there. So what we're going to talk about today is a remedy for that. And it's the social dirty bomb. Now, what a dirty bomb is something that people put together where they throw in as many utensils, maybe not utensils, but as many different random materials as they can to cause the most damage. They want the materials, for instance, like screws, nails, bits of glass, pieces of metal, shrapnel. They put it all in the hope that something will spread out and hit the enemy and hurt them. In this instance, we want to put as many different things as we can in our social dirty bomb to help the other person. But in the same way, we want to be sure that something goes out there, that they can grab onto something, they connect with something that they can run with. A lot of times when that awkward lull comes up and the other person kind of feels weird, and you can see they're kind of feeling awkward and they walk away, they assume that that's because they didn't have something to say or because they didn't like the other person or they're just waiting for a chance to get out of the conversation. When in actuality, oftentimes the other person's nervous too and they're a little stifled in their mind and they can't come up with something to say. They wish they could, but they'd feel awkward saying something they felt was weird. They wish you'd say something so they could stick around, but you don't, and so they leave. So what using the social dirty bomb is going to allow you to do is give them every advantage and every chance that they possibly can to contribute in the conversation. If you throw a social dirty bomb and you do it the right way and then they still walk away, the odds are very long that that's going to happen. But if it does, it truly is probable they were just waiting for a chance to walk away, which happens sometime and it's no big deal at all. But you know you did everything you could and it's very clear at that point where you stand. So what we're going to do, there's 3 steps to the awkward dirty bomb. Let's hope not. To the social dirty bomb. Number 1, you're going to grab the case. And what that is you're just going to respond to whatever they say. So let's look at the example in the video where she said, oh, I actually just graduated with my master's degree from USC. So the first thing you have to do, you grab the case, you just respond. You say, oh, cool. Something very ambiguous just to address that you heard it and you're going to follow up with something else. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to grab 2 different ingredients, nails and screws, glass and metal, 2 different things that you know about her statement that she could possibly grab onto and talk to. So if there's 3 or 4 things that pop to your head, you want to grab the 2 things that are going to be the most interesting, that may spur the most interest and thought from the other person. So for instance, I know that Pete Carroll used to coach at USC. He now coaches for the Seattle Seahawks, but he used to coach for them, and he was kind of a polarizing character. He had an interesting way of coaching. He was very laid back. People say he was more of a kind of a pro mentality coach even in college, but regardless of that, he was very widely known. People either loved him or hate him. So I know that. So either she's going to appreciate my comment that I liked him, or she's going to not, and at least she's going to have something to say. The second thing I was able to think of is I know that the Rose Bowl parade's a really big deal. I remember hearing about how the streets are just crazy packed. And then there's a huge migration from that to the actual game in the stadium later. And I know that if she went to school there, she was probably part of that. And it's just absolutely crazy. So I figured there'd be something she could grab onto in that conversational thread too. And then the last thing is what I consider the detonator. So step one is get the shell, address it. Oh, very cool. Step 2 is pick 2 interesting, talkable threads, materials that you can slam in that dirty bomb. Number 3 is the ignition, and that's kind of the catch-all. So what I'm going to say at the end is just an open-ended question. How is your experience? So what if by chance she doesn't know who Pete Carroll was, doesn't care about football, and she didn't even hear about the Rose Bowl parade. She was just a bookworm and she never went out. Well, then that social dirty bomb is going to land because she doesn't know either of the 2 genius ideas that I came up for her to talk about. So the last thing I'm going to do is just say, how was your experience? Because that is something that you can grab onto. Anyone can say anything at all. Very open-ended question. So 3 steps: case, fill it up, detonate it. Before I get into a video that shows the social dirty bomb actually applied in a real life situation, I want to talk about a couple mistakes that I see people make that you shouldn't do. So in the intro, you see I go, oh, the Trojans. So I made 2 mistakes there. Number 1, I was looking for their response. What I wanted her to say at that point is, oh yeah, the Trojans, hooray, you know them. Very, very try hard. I'm looking for approval. I'm looking for her to validate that I said the right thing or something cool. I should never do that because I don't have enough social value built up at that point. I just met her, so she doesn't care. The last thing she wants to do is buy into my frame. So when I stop and I say the Trojans with an up swinging tonality, it's saying, hey, say I'm cool. Say what I said was cool. It's okay. Let's say the only thing you could possibly think of is that you knew the school mascot was the Trojans. Well, then say something like, oh, cool, the Trojans. I actually went to San Diego State, and run into that as opposed to waiting. The second thing, as I touched on briefly before, is the tonality. Never end a statement with an upwards tonality right when you're meeting someone, because once again, it's looking for approval. You're looking for them to say something is okay, and that's very unattractive in both men and women. This isn't just a situation where I'm talking to a girl. If I'm talking to a guy, I'm just meaning it's the exact same thing. So as opposed to saying, say I don't know anything about Los Angeles, but I was there last week. So I say, oh really, I just drove through Los Angeles and I went to a real nice shoe store. Okay, you stop in that upward tonality and you're waiting, you're trying, you want them to buy in so much and say, oh cool, what shoe store was it? But you don't have enough leverage built up. They don't care right now. They don't want to. They don't want to contribute that much. So instead, you always want to end with an authoritative downward tonality. And what that expresses and communicates is that you're not looking. You don't care about their reaction. You're just giving your thoughts. You're just expressing yourself. So you might say, oh yeah, I actually just drove through Los Angeles last week. I stopped at this really good shoe store there. So you see how that feels much differently. I'm not looking for a reaction. If she wants to contribute and say, oh cool, what shoe store was it? Much better from that position than there's a really cool shoe store there. Like you're trying to, like it's almost like, guess what I did today? Nobody likes that. That's stupid. Nobody wants to jump through your hoops at this point. So you don't have leverage. If your friend comes in from 5 years, like, oh, guess what I did today? They're like, oh cool, what? But they already have buy-in. You have that relationship, that rapport, that social leverage already built up. So let's jump back in and look how this social dirty bomb plays out in real life. Build the bomb, once again, the shell. Oh, very cool. Add 2 ingredients, 2 talking points, Pete Carroll and the Rose Bowl parade, and then detonate it with a catch-all question at the end. How was your experience? See which one they jump on. They can jump on all 3, they can jump on 1, but you're giving them the ingredients, the brew to make that soup. Let's check it out. Where'd you go to school?
I just finished grad school at USC.
Oh, nice. I was a huge fan of Pete Carroll when he was there. I heard that when the Rose Bowl rolls through, it's just mayhem. How was your experience?
I had so much fun. I love the school. And yeah, when the Rose Bowl's there, it's crazy, but it's a great time.
All right, cool. So you can see how that's much more natural for them to jump on one of those threads and roll with it. When you use this, you're going to find that very rarely, once you become proficient at pulling different ingredients and putting them in, different talking points, different threads, very rarely will someone not jump on one of those threads. And this really hugely mitigates the risk of running out of things to say. Now, if you do run out of things to say, if you drop the social dirty bomb and they still don't contribute, like I said, probably means they're not too into the conversation. Maybe find someone else to talk to, no big deal at all. But if you want to try one more time to fill that gap, I would suggest just talking about your thoughts and your perspectives. See, it seems like we're taught oftentimes that nobody wants to hear about you. And I'm a big advocate that you want to turn questions around to them as soon as possible, because nobody does care about what your thoughts are for the most part unless you're friends with them or something's very interesting. So I know it's kind of a pessimistic way to look at things, and it's not completely true, but when you're trying to really be effective at new interactions, you want that frame in your head. But don't be afraid to talk about your thoughts on something like that. So if that didn't hit about the my 2 comments about USC, I might just start talking about college. Like, yeah, actually, when I was in San Diego, there was a surf thing. It's coming up in a week down there, and we all would go down to Pacific Beach and this and this and this, and then get into plowing. You can check out my video on plowing that kind of gets into more of the specifics of how to do that. But I guess the 2 real tips of what to do to avoid running out of things to say is, number 1, employ the social dirty bomb. Pull in as many threads as possible. I shouldn't say as many as possible. Pull them together, pick the best 2, wrap them up, detonate it in a catch-all question. Number 2, if there's a lull, but you feel like they still may want to participate in the conversation, maybe your catch-all question was weak. Maybe you said, how many years did you go? Or you screw up and you say, what year did you graduate? She says, in 1998. And you say, too bad it was a yes/no question as opposed to an open-ended catch-all. Then just start plowing into your thoughts on the pertinent subject. Football you could go to at that point, parades at that point, NFL football, college, dorms, anything. Just go wherever you want. Give a little plow. Give a 30-second plow, a 30-second synopsis, 30-second sermon on the Mount about something pertaining to that. It's going to free up their mind. They're going to get out of their head. They're going to become more present. They're going to be able to free think more efficiently and effectively. So at the end of that, odds are they'll be able to jump on something you said in that plowing. Or maybe even at that point, they're comfortable to go back and say, I actually remember Pete Carroll. He's that gray hair guy that used to play the piano to hype up the team the nights before the games, right? And they're like, yeah, and then you've got it. Then you got by that critical threshold and you're on your way. You got some momentum and they're participating. So check it out. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what ingredients, what threads you pull in your dirty bomb, and when in an interaction you felt that it was a good time to employ it and how it turned out. I'll talk to you soon. When the Rose Bowl parade rolls through, it's awesome. How's your experience?
I loved it.
No, you're not walking away.
I don't know what I'm talking about.